Claire Bennett stood behind the counter of Sweet Moments Bakery, her hands covered in flour as she shaped croissants for the morning rush. The small shop sat tucked between a bookstore and a laundromat in the heart of the city's oldest neighborhood. At 28, Claire had poured her savings and dreams into this place 3 years ago. The walls were painted soft cream, and the display cases showcased her handmade pastries and cakes. Every morning brought the rich aroma of fresh bread and brewing coffee, creating a cozy atmosphere that regular customers loved. Her business was modest but stable. Claire worked long hours, often arriving before dawn to prepare the day's baking. She found joy in creating beautiful wedding cakes and watching customers smile at their first bite of her chocolate eclairs. Life was simple, predictable, and exactly what she had worked so hard to build. But lately, peace had been shattered by someone from her past. The shadow that followed Ryan Fletcher had been Claire's boyfriend for 18 months before she ended things. 6 weeks ago, a freelance journalist with ambitions bigger than his ethics, Ryan had a habit of crossing boundaries. During their relationship, Claire discovered he had been writing personal articles about her life without permission, turning their private moments into public stories. When she confronted him, Ryan claimed he was simply documenting their love story. But Claire saw it differently. She saw invasion, not inspiration. Since the breakup, Ryan had become impossible to shake. He appeared at the bakery daily, sent dozens of texts, and waited outside her apartment. His messages alternated between apologies and accusations, blaming Claire for not understanding his artistic vision. Yesterday, she had spotted him photographing her through the bakery window, adding to a collection he claimed would become a book about modern relationships. Claire felt trapped, watched, and increasingly anxious. An ordinary evening turns extraordinary Tuesday evening, arrived with autumn rain drumming against the bakery windows. Claire closed the shop at 7, exhausted from baking a 3-tier anniversary cake and managing a steady stream of customers. She pulled on her navy raincoat, grabbed her worn leather bag, and locked the front door. The subway station was only 2 blocks away, and, despite the weather, she welcomed the walk. Fresh air helped clear her mind after hours in the warm kitchen. As Claire descended the subway stairs, she noticed Ryan leaning against a pillar near the ticket machines. Her stomach dropped. He wore his usual leather jacket and carried his expensive camera, looking relaxed as if his presence was perfectly normal. Claire considered turning back, but she refused to let him control her movements. She walked past him without acknowledgement, swiping her Metro card and heading toward the platform. The station was moderately crowded with evening commuters heading home. Claire positioned herself near the middle of the platform, hoping the crowd would discourage Ryan from approaching. But within minutes, he appeared beside her, his cologne overpowering the damp subway smell. He started talking, his voice low and urgent, asking why she refused to see that they belonged together. Claire stared straight ahead, her jaw tight, saying nothing. A stranger becomes a shield standing. A few feet away was a man who seemed entirely out of place in the gritty subway station. He wore a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that looked custom-made, with a crisp white shirt and navy tie. His dark hair was styled with casual precision, and even from a distance, Claire noticed his confident posture. He appeared to be in his early 30s, focused on his phone with the calm demeanor of someone completely comfortable in his own skin. Ryan's voice grew louder, attracting unwanted attention from other passengers. Panic rose in Claire's chest as she realized he was creating a scene. Without overthinking the decision, she walked directly to the well-dressed stranger. Her heart hammered as she looked up into his face, meeting eyes the color of warm honey. "Excuse me?" Claire said quickly, her voice shaking slightly. "I know this sounds insane, but could you please pretend to know me? My ex is harassing me. I need him to think I'm with someone." The stranger's expression shifted from surprise to understanding in seconds. He glanced past Claire, immediately spotting Ryan, who was now watching them with narrowed eyes. Without hesitation, the stranger smiled warmly at Claire, his entire demeanor changing to convey familiarity. Claire's voice was smooth and reassuring. "There you are. I was starting to worry you would miss our train." The kiss that changed everything. Ryan moved closer, his camera now raised and ready. Claire could see him preparing to document this interaction. to twist it into another story about her supposed instability. Desperation flooded through her. She needed to make this convincing, needed Ryan to finally believe their relationship was truly over. Before her courage could fade, Claire stepped closer to the stranger and kissed him. She expected awkwardness. Perhaps a quick brush of lips before they separated and went their separate ways. Instead, something unexpected happened. The stranger responded with gentle confidence, his hand rising to rest lightly on her waist. The kiss deepened naturally, becoming more real than pretend. Claire felt warmth spread through her entire body, a connection she had never experienced with Ryan despite their months together. When they finally separated, both were breathing slightly faster. The stranger's honey-colored eyes searched hers with genuine concern and something else Claire could not quite identify. Around them, the subway crowd continued their evening routines, oblivious to the moment that had just passed between two people who had been strangers seconds ago. "Thank you," Claire whispered, acutely aware that his hand remained on her waist, steady and protective. The stranger smiled, and Claire noticed how it transformed his serious face into something approachable and kind. "My pleasure. I'm Julian, by the way." "Julian Masters, Claire Bennett." She glanced back to find Ryan still watching them, his expression twisted with anger and disbelief. The camera hung forgotten at his side, an offer she had not expected. The subway train arrived with a rush of warm air and squealing brakes. Julian guided Claire onto the car with his hand still resting lightly on her back. They found seats together while Ryan remained on the platform, clearly debating whether to follow. As the doors closed and the train pulled away, Claire saw him standing there, his silhouette shrinking as they accelerated into the tunnel. "Are you all right?" Julian asked, his voice low enough that nearby passengers could not hear. Claire nodded, though her hands trembled slightly in her lap. "I'm sorry for dragging you into that. Ryan has been following me for weeks, and I just needed him to see that I've moved on." "Has he threatened you?" The protective edge in Julian's voice surprised Claire, not directly, but he takes pictures without permission and shows up everywhere. Today was the worst, though. I've never seen him this persistent. Julian studied her face with an intensity that should have felt uncomfortable, but somehow did not. "Look, I know we just met under unusual circumstances, but would you let me buy you dinner? I want to make sure you get home safely and honestly after that kiss. I would like to know more about the brave woman who just turned my ordinary evening into something memorable." Claire hesitated. Everything about Julian screamed success and sophistication, from his expensive suit to his confident manner. She was a bakery owner with flour permanently under her fingernails and dreams smaller than his watch probably cost. Yet something in his expression seemed genuine, interested in her beyond the dramatic circumstances of their meeting. "Dinner sounds nice," Claire heard herself say, "but somewhere casual. I'm covered in flour and smell like vanilla extract." Julian's laugh was warm and genuine. "Vanilla sounds perfect to me," as the subway carried them through the city. Claire realized her quiet, predictable life had just taken an unexpected turn. She had no idea that the handsome stranger sitting beside her controlled a business empire, or that their chance encounter would soon reveal truths about love, trust, and the vast differences between their worlds. But for now, Claire simply felt grateful to have escaped Ryan's presence and intrigued by the man, whose kiss had felt far too real to be merely pretend. Julian took Claire to a small Italian restaurant tucked away on a quiet street. The place was nothing fancy, with checkered tablecloths and candles and wine bottles, but the atmosphere felt warm and inviting. Claire relaxed as they settled into a corner booth, the stress of encountering Ryan slowly melting away. Julian ordered wine and asked about her bakery with genuine interest that surprised her. Claire found herself talking freely about sweet moments, describing the challenge of perfecting her grandmother's chocolate cake recipe and the joy of creating wedding cakes for nervous brides. Julian listened intently, asking thoughtful questions about her business and laughing at her stories about demanding customers. He seemed fascinated by the simple pleasure she took in her work, a reaction that puzzled Claire slightly. When she asked about his job, Julian paused briefly before answering. "I work in corporate management. Lots of meetings, international calls, paperwork. Nothing as creative or fulfilling as what you do." The answer felt incomplete, but Claire did not press. They had just met, after all, and everyone deserved their privacy. Instead, she enjoyed the easy conversation that flowed between them. Julian was charming without being arrogant, intelligent without being condescending. He made her laugh with dry observations about city life, and listened when she talked about her dreams of expanding the bakery. Someday, hours passed without either of them noticing. When the restaurant staff began stacking chairs, Claire realized they had been talking for nearly 3 hours. Julian insisted on driving her home, and Claire agreed, feeling safer than she had in weeks. His car was sleek and expensive, though Claire knew little about vehicles. The leather interior smelled new, and everything about it spoke of wealth she had not initially recognized the morning after. Reality Claire woke Wednesday morning with butterflies in her stomach. Julian had asked for her number before saying goodnight, and they had already exchanged several text messages. His good morning text arrived just as she was preparing the first batch of croissants, making her smile despite her exhaustion. She caught herself checking her phone between customers. Anticipating his messages throughout the day, her assistant Nina Chen arrived at 9 and immediately noticed Claire's improved mood. Nina was a culinary school student who worked part-time at the bakery, and the two had become close friends over the past year. She had witnessed Ryan's harassment and worried constantly about Claire's safety. "You look happy today?" Nina observed, while arranging fresh pastries in the display case. "Did something happen?" Claire told her about meeting Julian, though she downplayed the dramatic circumstances. Nina listened with growing excitement, asking a dozen questions about this mysterious man who had swept Claire off her feet. But her enthusiasm dimmed when Ryan walked through the door at 11 o'clock. Ryan looked disheveled, his eyes bloodshot, as if he had not slept. He carried his laptop bag and wore an expression that made Claire's stomach knot with anxiety. Nina positioned herself protectively near the counter as Ryan approached. "We need to talk," Ryan announced, his voice tight with barely controlled emotion. "I spent all night researching your new boyfriend." Claire's hands stilled over the cake she was decorating. "What are you talking about?" The truth revealed. Ryan opened his laptop on the counter, pushing aside a tray of cookies. His fingers flew across the keyboard before turning the screen toward Claire. Her breath caught as she saw Julian's photograph staring back at her from a business magazine website. But this was not the casual, approachable Julian from last night. This Julian wore an expensive suit and stood in front of floor-to-ceiling windows. Overlooking the city skyline, the headline read, "Julian Masters, CEO of Masters Global Corporation, announces expansion into Asian markets." Claire stared at the screen, her mind struggling to process the information. "That cannot be right," she whispered. "Oh, it gets better," Ryan said, scrolling through more articles. Julian Masters, billionaire CEO, net worth estimated at $5 billion. His company owns technology firms, real estate developments, and manufacturing plants across 6 continents. He inherited the business from his father and tripled its value in 8 years. The screen now showed photographs from charity galas and corporate events. Julian in tuxedos, shaking hands with politicians. Julian receiving business awards. Julian photographed with elegant women in designer gowns at high society functions. Each image showed a man who belonged to a world Claire could barely imagine. Nina moved closer, her eyes wide as she looked at the articles. "Claire, is this really the guy from last night?" Claire could not speak. Her throat felt tight, and her hands trembled as she gripped the counter edge. The man who had eaten pasta in a neighborhood restaurant and laughed at her bakery? Stories was the same person commanding billion-dollar deals and attending events with celebrities. "He lied to you," Ryan continued, his voice mixing triumph with concern. "Corporate management. He owns the corporation. Actually, he owns dozens of corporations. Julian Masters does not date bakery owners, Claire. Look at these women he has been photographed with. Models, actresses, heiresses. You are completely out of your league." Doubt takes root. Claire felt Nina's hand on her shoulder, but she could barely register the comfort. Everything about last night suddenly seemed false, staged. Why would someone like Julian Masters be interested in her? Had the whole evening been some kind of game for him? A way to amuse himself by pretending to be ordinary? Her phone buzzed with a text from Julian. Looking forward to seeing you tonight? There is something important I want to tell you. The message that should have filled her with excitement now felt ominous. Of course, there was something important. He had lied about his entire identity. Claire stared at her phone, unsure how to respond. Ryan closed his laptop, his expression softening into something resembling sympathy. I know you think I am just being jealous, but I am trying to protect you. Men like Julian Masters live in a different universe. They do not fall in love with regular people. You are going to get hurt, and I do not want to see that happen. For once, Ryan's words did not sound manipulative. They sounded like simple truth. Claire looked around her modest bakery with its second-hand equipment and homemade decorations. Then she thought about the photographs of Julian's world private jets, luxury hotels, exclusive events. The gap between their lives was not just wide, it was a canyon. A difficult conversation. Claire spent the afternoon in turmoil, mechanically filling orders while her mind spun with questions. Nina tried to offer encouragement, suggesting that maybe Julian had good reasons for not revealing everything immediately. But Claire could not shake the feeling of betrayal. She had trusted him, opened up about her life, while he had hidden the most fundamental truth about himself. When Julian called that afternoon, Claire almost did not answer. But avoiding the conversation would only prolong her confusion. She stepped into the back office, closing the door for privacy. Julian's voice was warm and cheerful. Hey, I have been thinking about you all day. Are we still on for tonight? Claire took a deep breath. I saw the articles. About Masters Global Corporation. About you being a billionaire CEO? The silence that followed felt endless. When Julian finally spoke, his voice was careful, measured. I was planning to tell you tonight. I wanted to explain everything in person. Explain what? That you lied about who you are? Claire's voice cracked despite her effort to stay calm. I did not lie, Claire. Everything I told you last night was true. I just did not tell you everything. There is a difference, is there? Because from where I stand, hiding the fact that you are a billionaire is pretty significant. Claire paced the small office, anger and hurt warring inside her. You are right, Julian admitted. I should have been completely honest from the beginning. But Claire, please understand. When I meet people, they see my money and my company before they see me. Last night you saw just Julian. You talked to me like I was a regular person, and it was the most genuine conversation I have had in years. I did not want to ruin that by introducing all the complications that come with my position. The heart's confusion. Claire wanted to believe him. The sincerity in his voice sounded real, and she remembered how natural their conversation had felt. But Ryan's words echoed in her mind. Julian dated models and actresses. He moved in circles where her entire bakery would be considered pocket change. How could someone from that world truly want a relationship with her? Julian continued when Claire remained silent. I understand if you need time to process this. But please, do not let my bank account change what we started. The connection between us was real. You felt it too. I know you did. How can I trust anything now? Claire asked quietly. Your whole life is something I cannot even comprehend. We come from completely different worlds. So what? Julian's voice grew passionate. Does it matter that I wear expensive suits and attend boring business dinners? Does it change the fact that I enjoyed every minute with you last night? That I have not been able to stop thinking about you? Money is just money, Claire. It does not define who I am inside. Claire closed her eyes, remembering the kiss at the subway station. The warmth of his hand on her waist, the genuine interest in his eyes when she talked about her bakery. Had all of that been acting? Or had she glimpsed the real person beneath the billionaire facade? I need time to think, Claire finally said. This is all too much, too fast. Take whatever time you need, Julian replied, though disappointment colored his voice. But Claire, please believe me when I say that meeting you was the best thing that has happened to me in a very long time. Do not let fear or doubt destroy something that could be amazing. After they hung up, Claire sat in the quiet office, her head in her hands. Nina knocked softly before entering, carrying 2 cups of tea. She sat beside Claire without speaking, offering silent support as her friend wrestled with an impossible decision. Outside, the The bakery continued its afternoon rhythm. Customers came and went. Life proceeded as normal. But Claire knew nothing would be normal again. She had kissed a stranger to escape her past, only to discover he lived in a future she'd never imagined. Now, she had to decide whether love could truly bridge the enormous gap between their worlds, or if fairy tales only existed in stories, not in real life. 3 days passed without contact between Claire and Julian. She threw herself into work, creating elaborate birthday cakes and preparing for a weekend wedding order. But her mind constantly wandered to honey-colored eyes and a gentle smile. Nina watched her with concern, recognizing the signs of someone fighting against their own heart. The bakery customers began asking questions. News traveled fast in their close-knit neighborhood, and somehow word had spread about Claire being seen with Julian Masters. Mrs. Patterson, who bought cinnamon rolls every Thursday, mentioned seeing photographs online of Claire and Julian at the subway station. The images, taken by Ryan, had been posted on several social media platforms with captions. Speculating about the unlikely romance between a billionaire and a baker, some customers found the story charming, a modern fairy tale. But others expressed skepticism or outright judgment. Claire overheard whispered conversations about gold diggers and women who dated above their station. The words stung more than she expected, adding weight to her already heavy doubts. Ryan's final play Friday afternoon brought Ryan back to the bakery. But this time, he was not alone. He had brought a woman named Veronica Ashford, who introduced herself as a lifestyle journalist for a prominent magazine. Veronica was impeccably dressed in a designer suit, her blonde hair styled in a perfect bob. She carried a recorder and wore an expression of professional curiosity. Ms. Bennett Veronica began without preamble. I am writing a piece about unlikely relationships between high society figures and ordinary citizens. Ryan mentioned you are currently involved with Julian Masters. I would love to hear your perspective on navigating such different social spheres. Claire felt her face, flushed with anger and embarrassment. I am not doing an interview. Please leave my shop. Ryan stepped forward, his expression falsely sympathetic. Claire, people are talking. Do not you want a chance to tell your side of the story before others define it for you? There is no story, Claire said firmly. Now both of you need to leave before I call the police for harassment. Veronica pulled out her phone, showing Claire a draft article. The headline read, Billionaire's brief fling with local baker raises questions about sincerity. The piece painted Claire as naive and Julian as a wealthy man amusing himself with someone beneath his status. Though the article claimed to be balanced, the underlying message was clear. Their relationship could not possibly be real or lasting. This runs tomorrow unless you give me an actual interview, Veronica said coolly. Your choice is to participate in shaping the narrative or let me print what I already have. Anne. Unexpected defender before Claire could respond. The bakery door opened with such force that the bell nearly flew off its hook. Julian strode in, his presence immediately commanding attention, despite wearing simple jeans and a casual shirt. His eyes were blazing as he took in the sign Claire backed against the counter. Ryan and Veronica positioned like predators, closing in on prey. You need to leave, Julian said quietly, but his voice carried an authority that made even Veronica step back. Now, Mr. Masters? Veronica recovered quickly, holding out her recorder. Perfect timing. Would you like to comment on your relationship with Ms. Bennett? Julian ignored her completely, moving to stand beside Claire. His hand found hers, fingers interweaving with confident possessiveness. Are you all right? He asked Claire softly, as if they were the only two people in the room. Claire nodded. Overwhelmed by his sudden appearance and the protective warmth radiating from him, Julian turned back to Ryan and Veronica, his expression hardening. Let me be absolutely clear. Claire Bennett is not a story for you to exploit. Our relationship is not entertainment for your readers. If either of you publish anything about her without permission, my legal team will ensure you spend years in court. Am I understood? Ryan opened his mouth to argue, but something in Julian's eyes stopped him. Veronica, recognizing a battle she could not win, gathered her things and left quickly. Ryan followed more slowly. shooting Claire one last look that mixed resentment with genuine hurt before disappearing through the door. The truth laid bare, the bakery fell silent except for the soft hum of refrigeration units. Nina had apparently disappeared into the back room to give them privacy. Claire found herself still holding Julian's hand, unsure whether to pull away or hold tighter. "I am sorry," Julian said first. "For not telling you everything from the beginning? For the media attention? For making your life complicated?" Claire looked up at him, seeing worry and uncertainty in his face. These were emotions she had not expected from a billionaire CEO. "Why are you here, Julian?" "Really here, I mean? You could have any woman you want. Why pursue someone like me?" Julian's laugh was short and bitter. "Someone like you. Claire, do you have any idea how rare you are? In my world, everyone wants something. A business deal, a photo opportunity, access to my money or connections. But you looked at me in that subway station and saw just a person who could help. You talked to me about flour and frosting like they were the most important things in the world. You made me feel real. But I am not part of your world," Claire protested weakly. "I do not know how to attend fancy parties or talk to important people. I make cupcakes for a living. Love finds a way." Julian cupped her face gently with both hands, forcing her to meet his eyes. "I do not need you to be part of my world. I want to be part of yours. Do you know what I did yesterday? I canceled 3 meetings to take a bread-making class. I was terrible at it, by the way. My baguettes looked like baseball bats. But I wanted to understand what you love about baking." Claire felt tears prick her eyes. "You took a baking class?" "I also looked into investing in small business development programs because watching you talk about your bakery made me realize how many talented people struggle to access capital. And I fired my publicist because she suggested using our relationship for positive press coverage." His thumbs brushed away the tears now sliding down Claire's cheeks. "Claire, I am not interested in you, despite your ordinary life. I am interested in you because of it. You remind me of who I wanted to be before I inherited an empire and lost myself in spreadsheets and stockholder meetings. What about all those women in the photographs? The models and actresses?" Claire had to ask Julian's side. "Business associates, publicity arrangements, a few dates that went nowhere. None of them ever made me feel what I felt when I kissed you. None of them ever looked at me like I was just Julian, not Julian Masters of Masters Global Corporation." A leap of faith. Claire studied his face, searching for any hint of deception. She found only honesty and vulnerability. The man standing before her was not the confident CEO from magazine covers. He was someone just as scared and uncertain as she was, hoping for connection in a world that often felt superficial and cold. "I am still terrified," Claire admitted. "Your life is so different from mine." "Then we will figure it out together," Julian said simply. "I am not asking you to change who you are or leave your bakery behind. I am asking you to take a chance on something real." On us, Claire thought about the past 3 days of misery and doubt. She thought about how empty her bakery had felt without Julian's texts making her smile. She thought about that kiss in the subway station and how it had felt like coming home to a place she had never been. "Okay," she whispered. "Okay, let us try." Julian's smile was brilliant and relieved. He kissed her softly, and this time there was no pretense, no audience, no desperate escape plan. Just a people choosing to bridge the gap between their different worlds with the simplest and most powerful tool available: building bridges. The following months proved challenging but beautiful. Julian made good on his promise to be part of Claire's world. He showed up at the bakery on slow afternoons to help with dishes and listen to her talk about recipe experiments. He attended community events with her, comfortable in casual clothes and simple surroundings. When business required his attention, Claire supported him, learning about his work with the same interest he showed in hers. Claire, in turn, slowly entered Julian's world. She attended corporate functions in borrowed dresses, holding Julian's hand as he introduced her proudly to business associates. Some people remained skeptical, but most were charmed by her authenticity and the obvious love between her and Julian. Ryan eventually stopped his harassment. Moving to another city for a fresh start, The tabloid interest faded when people realized Claire and Julian's relationship was genuine and lasting. Not a brief scandal to exploit, 1 year after that subway kiss. Julian proposed in the bakery after closing time. He got down on one knee, surrounded by the sweet smell of vanilla and chocolate, offering a ring and a future together. Claire said yes without hesitation, finally believing that fairy tales could happen to ordinary people who were brave enough to take extraordinary chances on love. Their wedding was small and intimate, held in the neighborhood park near the bakery. Claire wore a simple white dress and carried a bouquet of wildflowers. Julian cried during his vows, promising to always see her as the courageous woman who kissed a stranger and changed his life forever. As they danced under string lights with their closest friends and family, Claire realized that love had not required her to become someone different, or Julian to diminish his success. Instead, love had created a bridge between their worlds, allowing them both to grow while remaining true to themselves. The baker and the billionaire had found something rare and precious, a connection built on genuine respect, trust, and the simple joy of being seen and valued for exactly who they were.